In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove objects and people from footage that has camera movement, such as drone shots. I've picked out 2 shots with slightly different challenges. Your footage might present different problems, but the principles should be applicable. Why is removing objects from footage with camera movement so problematic? Because the camera's perspective is constantly changing. Therefore, any patch we create needs to constantly match the camera's perspective. Fusion has some great tools to help us do this. Here's the 2 shots I'm going to demonstrate with. In the first, we'll remove this tree. This is the easier example as the tree is stationary. In the second example, we'll remove this car using a slightly different technique. This example will be harder as the car is in motion. I'll position the playhead over the first clip and then head to the Fusion page. You'll notice both of these shots have something in common. I'm patching objects that are on top of flat surfaces, like the car on the road, or in this instance, the tree in the field. Because of that, I'm going to use the Planar Tracker. Hit Shift Space to bring up the Select Tool prompt, and then find the Planar Tracker. The first thing that we need to do with the Planar Tracker is to draw around the plane in the image that we want to track. With the Planar Tracker node selected, simply click in the viewer to start drawing your shape. I want this track to be as accurate as possible, so I'm going to exclude the tree. That's because the tree isn't a part of the plane that I'm tracking. Before we start tracking, we do need to set our reference frame. Just hit set. And now I can track forward. I created my reference frame at the beginning of my clip. Please note, if you created yours somewhere in the middle, you will need to track in both directions to make sure the entire clip gets tracked. Now this is where the magic happens. Change the operation mode on that Planar Tracker from track to steady. Now when I play back my footage, you'll see that the Planar Tracker node has stabilized that plane that we tracked. This step is important because it's what allows us to paint out that tree without having to do complicated motion tracking on its movement. But obviously in our final image, we want to see the original camera movement. So let's set that up before we paint out the tree. Select the Planar Tracker, copy it with Command-C or Control-C, and then paste it. Now we've got 2 copies of our Planar Tracker with all of that tracking data in them. On the second Planar Tracker, check Invert Steady Transform. So our first Planar Tracker is steadying that plane, and then the second Planar Tracker is undoing that steady operation, so we're back to our original camera movement. But in this little spot here in between in my node tree, the image is flattened and stabilized. This is where I'm going to do my paint out. I'm going to try a simple way of fixing this first, but I have a feeling we're going to run up against a problem. I'll return my playhead to the first frame. This just makes life a little bit easier. And then I'll insert a paint node. I'll equip that paint node in my left-hand viewer by hitting 1 on my keyboard. Don't forget, paint strokes have a duration. This catches me out all the time. So I'll change my stroke duration to something that's longer than my clip straight away. And then I'll equip my Clone Multi-Stroke tool. If you hold down on Option or Alt and then click, that will set where you're cloning from. There you go, I've patched the tree, but do you see the problem? This field has lines in it, and the lines in my patch don't match. Hey, that rhymes. We'll use the paint tool on the next example. For the time being, I'm going to delete it and I'm going to try something different. I'll add a transform node and equip it in my left viewer. I'm going to use it to create a clean patch of grass that I can then distort to match those tram lines in the field. I'll play with the zoom and transform till I find a patch of grass that I like. We're almost there, teeny bit more setup to do. I'll add a corner positioner node, so we're ready to distort this to match up those tram lines. Add a merge node in between those 2 planar trackers. That's what we're going to use to combine this patch back with the original image. And then create a mask for that merge node to control where the patch gets applied in the image. Now we can connect corner positioner to the merge node, select the corner positioner node, and start to play with those corner controls so that the tram lines in our patch match that in our original image. I think you get the idea. Let's just add some softness to the edges of that patch. is not perfect, but it's not bad. It does need some more work to blend that patch in so it's seamless, and it could have benefited from a higher resolution image in the first place. But hopefully now I've equipped you with enough information to start working on your own shots. Let's have a look at that second example. In my second example, my objective is to paint out that car so that the road is empty. This is going to be trickier because the car is in motion, but we can still use the planar tracker to do this. Same as before, add the planar tracker. Now remember, the planar tracker is designed to track things that are flat, but this landscape is anything but flat. The road is raised, there's banks, the hills are all sloping. Well, as I'm painting out the car that's traveling on the road and the road is flat, I'm going to make sure that the shape that I track, the plane that I'm tracking, is drawn very carefully to only include the road and not any of the surrounding terrain. As I'm setting my reference frame halfway through this clip, I will need to track forwards and then return the playhead to my reference frame and track backwards. While we were tracking, did you notice those red dots on the car? That is the planar tracker identifying and rejecting bad tracking data. Just like before, we're going to change the operation mode from track to steady. Now, as I drag my playhead backwards and forwards, you can see that the planar tracker has stabilized the road. This is going to make it possible for us to paint the car out. For this example, I'm going to rearrange my node tree. I want to perform this paint out in a parallel pipeline that I then merge back with the original image. Hopefully that will make sense as we go along. I'm going to do something a little different with this example. Instead of trying to create a patch that follows the car, I'm just going to create a still image of the road with the car painted out and then track that back into the image. Select the planar tracker node and insert a time stretcher node. This node creates a freeze frame of our moving image. If you want to change which frame you're using, you can do so by manipulating the source time property. I'm going to use that paint node that I demonstrated in the previous example, add it to your node tree. I'll equip that paint node in my left-hand viewer, select the clone multi-stroke tool. Don't make the same mistake I always make, increase your stroke duration to something that's longer than your clip before you start drawing. I've been careful with where I've clicked to make sure that that yellow line is not interrupted. Now let me show you what's happening here. When I hit play, the image on the right moves. The image on the left, that's showing us my paint node, doesn't move because we use that time stretcher node to freeze this image in place. Obviously, a still image of the road with the car painted out is no good to me. Its perspective needs to shift to match the camera's movement. Well, remember from our previous example, we can unsteady that planar track so that it matches the camera's movement by copying the planar tracker node, pasting it. Now, if I hit invert steady transform and then equip this second planar tracker in my left-hand viewer, its perspective now matches the original camera movement. Now we need to cut the road out so that we can merge just the road back with the original image. There's a couple of steps here. This is easiest to do while the image is still flat. So I'm going to make some room between the paint node and the planar tracker. And I'm actually going to delete the link between the two as well, because I find it a little bit easier to build this from scratch than it is to work with this existing connection. The first thing we need is a background node, and I'm going to make it transparent. Connect the background node to the background input of a merge node. The easiest way to do this is by selecting the background node like it already is, and then inserting a merge node. Now connect the paint node to the foreground input. And finally, add a polygon effect mask to the merge node. You can see it's connected to the blue input. Now with the polygon node selected, I can cut the road out. I don't need to do the entire road, just the portion of the road that the car is driving on. Please note I did this with my paint node selected in the viewer because I'm wanting to do this on the steadied image, not on the moving image. In my right-hand viewer, which is showing me my media out node, remember that's the image with all of the camera movement in, you'll see that the mask doesn't line up with the road. Don't worry about that. All we care about is it lining up with our steadied image. Let's equip that merge node in the left-hand viewer so we can see the result. That looks great. We just need to soften the edge of the mask. Let's finish up the node tree by connecting the merge node to that second planar tracker. Remember, this one has invert steady transform selected, so it will now shift the perspective of my paint out to match the camera movement in the original shot. Let's check our progress thus far by equipping this planar tracker in the left-hand viewer and watching the playback. That is looking tremendous. Let's combine this with the original image to get rid of that car. We'll need a merge node. If you want to connect a node to your node tree, don't forget if you hold down on Shift, when you drag and drop it on a line in your node tree, it will automatically connect it. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping to keep our node tree tidy. And finally, we can connect the planar tracker to the foreground input of that merge node. Let's see how it looks. It's looking really good. There's two final problems that we need to fix. Firstly, the camera's exposure actually changes over the duration of the shot. And because the patch we created was taken from the first frame of this video, well, by the end of the shot, our patch looks too light compared to the rest of the road. And the second problem that we want to fix is that this patch, again, because it's created from a still frame, it doesn't have any video noise. So if you watch carefully, you can see there's noise in the rest of the image, but there's no noise in the patched portion of the road. Let's fix that. We'll start by fixing the exposure change with a color corrector node. It needs to go between the planar tracker and the merge node. I'll create a keyframe for gamma at the beginning, and then a second keyframe for gamma at the end, where I'll make it darker. Now my patch will gradually get darker over time, matching the exposure of the original shot. And for that final problem, the lack of noise, we'll add a grain node and then fine-tune the grain size, the power, to match the noise present in the original image. Let's check it out. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. If you're enjoying this kind of content, please make sure that you've given the video a like, consider sharing it with someone, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos. All of that helps us to know what kind of content that we should make next. All right, thanks for watching.